that's not what I see for the character or for myself in the work. Yeah, which is also interesting because I heard there was going to be performance on opening night, so I was really interested to see what that was. Apparently, there was rumor going around about that, so I was kind of excited. I don't know if anybody would like to, but I don't feel like it's my work.
So was there a performance opening night? And then I do have a question, actually, following on that one too, about bringing it to life. A personal question, have you ever boxed, or since you created this, have you been to the gym and punched a bag to get any aggression out?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and it's interesting because that's a similar question that I've got my entire career. You know, early on I made a lot of body parts, and I was always asked, are you going to go to an autopsy? And I was like, no, because for me that's not what it's about. And when I was at Bemis, they tried to hook me up with a local gym. And everybody I meet and tell about it wants me to. And Andy and I even talked about going to see a fight once. And I think that, I think on a similar note to the performance, to me, that's not what it's about. So I almost don't want to, if I could maybe go to a pugilist, like back in the 19 or 17, you know, like see something. But even then, I don't think, it's not the actual act. It's the symbol or the, yeah.
That's very psychoanalytic. Yes. That's it. We nailed it.
On that note, can you talk about the distinction between pugilism and boxing for people who aren't?
For me, it mostly has to do with really capturing a sense of the time, and when, you know, just kind of bare-knuckled fists and two men or 8 men, or, you know, people were just kind of face-to-face, kind of getting down to it, and there was the jeering mob. I think boxing is a more contemporary idea. What I talked about, the idea of the chandeliers and the money and the spectacle. So they're interchangeable, but I don't think of boxing back in the day.
I was interested in the two psychoanalysts would be willing to talk at all about sort of current, about psychoanalysis, the connections between psychoanalysis and art, if any. If you have anything to say on the subject of either working with artists or anything at all to sort of give people a better idea about how psychoanalysis works. I'm more familiar with it than I think most people, and the language used is very interesting. I feel like artists particularly would have an interest in the connections.
You're nodding, you can take it.
Well, I think psychoanalysis it's a very creative process on the part of both the patient and the analyst. And I think that the experience of, and it's not easy and it doesn't just happen. I mean, there's a lot that goes into creating a space and creating a place where this kind of process can happen. But being in a place with somebody who is listening and with the freedom to say whatever comes to mind leads the patient in very unexpected ways. And the analyst listens, you know, when it, and maybe these are the high notes, I would say, you know, this is what was going on every single hour, but you're listening in a very different way. You're listening for metaphor. You're listening for some kind of form that ties together what seems disparate and unrelated. And in the process, together, making connections and retelling a story and creating something very new, but ultimately not as some kind of whole package thing that the patient then walks out the door with, because hopefully what you want at the end of an analysis is somebody who has started a process that goes on for the rest of their life, a kind of an openness to not knowing, an openness to being in places of uncertainty for long periods of time until something kind of emerges. So I think it's very similar to the creative process. You know.
It's like a Bemis, of 5 times a week or 4 times a week over the course of years, where you do a lot of bad work, and you make that punching bag. What did you call it? A speed bag. Make that speed bag 20 times and realize that's really not it. It's not sufficient. And so you continue, and you tear down your 8-foot boxing ring and draw a circle and start again. And the training is very much, I think, the training both formally and post-formally is very much like an artist training, where you gather a set of tools and master a certain medium, and then you move from a craftsman with those things, like maybe you felt about your clay work, to being someone who does something very specific and particular with things that a lot of other people are using but wouldn't use in the same way. It's great fun.
and hard.
Yeah.
Because people don't come to analysis really because they want to have fun. They come because there's there's something that's really troubling them in life, and that becomes the kind of, I don't know, the image that just emerged into my mind is that piece of sand in the oyster that irritates, and around which a whole process kind of takes shape. But the other thing I was going to say that I think is similar between psychoanalysis and art is that I don't think either of them can work at just an intellectual level. I mean, I'm sure when you work, there is some place that you go inside yourself that you're connecting to emotions and feelings and things that haven't even been put into words yet. And I think it's that process of moving between emotional states and language, or between emotional states and form, that is also similar between the two processes.
And I would say that, maybe to help what I didn't answer earlier, that for me, even though I look and I read and I think, when I'm in the studio, it's pretty much always intuitive. I'm just kind of like hyper and popping from one thing to the next, and then going out with the dog and making a cup of tea, and then grabbing things from something I made 10 years ago. And, so I know that it's all informing each other, but I don't sit down and say, today I'm going to make rope-a-dope.
There was music playing in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Did you choose that, and if so, why?
And actually, I'm really glad you brought that up, and I hope that if you haven't heard that piece, that you will come back or stay a little bit and hear it. It's a collaborative piece, and that's the first time I've ever done that, with Landon O'Brien and Mark Garcia, and it was something that I've worked with sound in previous installations, but I usually mix songs. Like the previous installation was Doris Day mixed with a really strong whipping wind, and I kind of treated it in a way that Doris Day's Que Sera Sera went in and out on the wind. So and it worked really well with the installation. But this time I had an idea that I am not a musician and was incapable of, and I also, Mark and Landon are amazing, so I thought I'd try something, and basically I gave them a link to about 10 female singers dating from like Bessie Smith back to the 1920s all the way through to Grace Jones, and they were women, and they were songs of not necessarily empowerment and not necessarily fuck you and not necessarily lust, but a combination of all of those things. And they hit on the tune that they actually reinterpreted or worked from was Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood by Nina Simone, which I think is incredibly appropriate for this exhibition and really exciting. And then we had a whole back and forth about how it played out, and then also for me, something that I was thinking about was once they gave me the piece, I was gonna, in the same way I'd used Doris Day originally, work with it afterwards, but once they gave me the piece, it was perfect. There was absolutely no, and I like the idea that, like a lot of my work, that there's a layer there if you know that song and the title, but if you don't, that's okay too. But I feel like, and again, this is just a personal reaction, that sound piece fills the space and connects all of the work, and I'm really, really happy and excited that they were willing to work with me on it. And I was also excited to, for the first time, be able to brainstorm with somebody and kind of bounce ideas and make something stronger on that level. So listen to it if you haven't heard it.